Started right there. So I'd like to welcome everyone to the October edition of Tennessee Turf Tuesday. I'm one of your hosts, Dr. Jim Brosnan. This is our final episode for 2023. We've had a really strong year with the Turf Tuesdays program. We've had a lot of great guests and great topics, and want to thank you from behalf of the turf program here. We've had great participation in these sessions all the way throughout the year, March through today. And today's going to be no different. We have a great guest and a great topic that I think many of you will be very interested in to learn more about. I know I certainly am. Before we get to that, a few pieces of business that I know several are very interested in. First and foremost being pesticide credits. I know that many who attend these sessions are very interested in getting pesticide credits for participating. The good news is that everything that you need to get that pesticide credit, you have completed. So when you registered for today's session, you provided all of your contact information as well as the state in which you wanted pesticide accreditation and your license number. That's all that's needed on your end. We will take that information to create a roster that will be submitted to the various state agencies to get you the pesticide point that you need. The only caveat in that is that you have to stay with us for the duration of the hour. Every agency wants you to be with us for the full 60-minute session in order to get your pesticide credit. And next thing in terms of business would be questions and answers. If you have questions during today's session, we encourage you to use, there's a Q&A box on the bottom of your screen. Type your question into that box, and then myself and my co-hosts here, Dr. Bowling and Dr. Sorokin, will read those questions, and we'll try to do our best to get all of those questions answered on air. In the event we run out of time, we can certainly type answers back into that Q&A box. Raising your hand or any functionality like that doesn't really work for Q&A here. We really want you to use the Q&A box in the bottom of your screen. Next, I should let you know the session is being recorded, as we do with every Turf Tuesday. We record the session. We put the video recording on our UT Turfgrass YouTube channel, and then we put the audio recording on the Tennessee Turf Tuesday podcast feed on Apple Podcasts. So if you miss out and you're not with us live today, you can find this session and any of our sessions for the past few years on either of those outlets. Should let you know that there are no pesticide credits for recorded viewings. You have to be a live participant for the duration of the hour in order to get a pesticide credit for participating. And then last but not least, for our golf course superintendent friends who participate in these sessions, as we come to the close of the hour, I will put up on the screen the Golf Course Superintendents Association of America code for you to get your CEU continuing education unit. This has absolutely nothing to do with pesticides. This is only for golf course superintendents to maintain their certified golf course superintendent status. So there's no pesticide component to that number. I think that wraps everything up in terms of business. To get started with today's session, I should welcome our guest, Dr. Casey Reynolds. He's with the Turfgrass Producers International. Myself and my colleagues here, Dr. Bowling and Dr. Sorokin, have known Casey for a long time. And Casey, welcome to Turf Tuesdays.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I know with today's session, we want to focus a lot on the sod checkoff, but I think before we can really have a meaningful dialogue about that, it's probably pretty important we provide a little bit of context just to kind of get to that point. John and Becky and I, we've known you for a long time, but for many of our folks that are listening today, can you give a little background about kind of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure thing. So I graduated from North Carolina State University with my PhD in turfgrass science. I spent about 10 years there as a researcher, and then I moved to Texas A&M, where I was there for about 4 years as a faculty member. And in 2017, I joined Turfgrass Producers International, which is a trade association that represents seed and sod farmers from all over the world. We've got members in 40 something states and probably 20 or more international countries. And we promote natural grass. We're farmers at heart. Our members produce the seed, the sod, the sprigs that landscapers and golf courses and ball fields use worldwide.
Yeah, and it's been interesting with at least in our state with the sod industry, particularly this year. We had pretty extensive winter kill of warm season grass throughout much of Tennessee. And I was not on a golf course property this spring that did not resod some area of the golf course in some capacity. And I think the same would be true with sports fields and probably to a lesser extent lawns. But I don't know, is that, in your work with TPI, did you see maybe an uptick in the sod business with the winter that was in 2023?
I personally did not. I think the reason for that is because housing is still strong. Most US sod farmers, I think, would tell you that housing is what pays the bills. When housing is strong, they might not even notice little things like you're saying where they have to replace here and there for winter kill. But if housing wasn't strong, it probably would have hit their books a little more noticeably. But the reality is housing is strong right now. And that's what, drives the ship for our industry.
And for our side, most of our growers here in Tennessee, they grow, they grow a lot of warm season grass, principally, hybrid Bermuda grass and zoysia, as well as some tall fescue. And I know I was out at one of our sod producer meetings in August, and I asked a question about inventory, and what sod inventory in the state really looked like, and I was pretty surprised by the answer that most of our growers across Tennessee had commented that inventory was just now in August kind of back to level where we were just okay on the warm season turfgrass front. Some of that was winter loss themselves, maybe from late season cuttings or late season plantings in a pretty harsh winter in 23. But as a group, they commented that while they were just back to level, it wouldn't take a real big push for some of that warm season inventory to go back down again, and there be maybe a little bit of scarcity, which I thought was interesting. And they also commented that they felt that, some of the everything's costing more in the modern world, that, the pricing of sod in 2024 might even tick up with all the, increases in fuel costs and trucking costs and whatnot. And it's certainly a more expensive endeavor now than it was a few years ago.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Labor's short, truck drivers are short. A lot of the things that landscapers are dealing with, we're also dealing with from an agricultural perspective. There are parts of the country, I've talked to farmers that have run out of sod. Like they say, I saw my last truck ship out of the farm 2 weeks ago and hadn't sold one since. So if your guys and gals have good inventory, God bless them, because there are other parts of the country where it's much shorter than that.
Yeah, I know. One of the things that our producers like to talk about is they never want to see sod have a birthday. They want to they want to plant it, grow it, harvest it, move it out the door, and plant it again. Which I've always liked. I've always liked that. I don't know if that's a metaphor or what, but
yeah, well, in your part of the country, you can do that. I mean, if you go to New Jersey, Michigan, I mean, I don't know that they can do that. If you go to Florida, I mean, they may harvest 2-3 times a year. So, but in mid Tennessee, like you guys and gals are at, I mean, that seems perfectly reasonable.
Yeah. So, Casey, you mentioned in your introductory remarks there that TPI represents sod and seed, and at this point in the season in Tennessee, we have a lot of lawn care professionals who join us for these sessions, a lot of extension agents that are fielding calls this time of year about interseeding, particularly of tall fescue lawns. The kind of conventional workflow in my time in Tennessee has been, we get into the fall of the year, there's lawns get aerated, and then, they call it overseeded with tall fescue, but there's some tall fescue there. So it's really like an interseeding event. Can you speak at all about maybe the current status of the seed industry, kind of where we're at seed inventory, or, where are things headed with seed production, particularly with the tall fescues? Because there's tremendous interest in the tall fescues. And I know Becky's been working on trying to put together some cultivar information for end users in the state.
Yeah, anecdotally, I think we've leveled off with seed production. And let me just preface this saying, I'm not the prime expert to answer that question about seed supply, shortage, surplus. But anecdotally, what I hear, a couple of years ago, seed was really short. Wildfires in the Northwest, drought in the Northwest. I think we're past that. We've somewhat leveled off. I even had a seed producer tell me last week that they're going into a surplus situation. This constant fear that there's a recession just around the corner, which we've been talking about for 2 years now, that hadn't happened. I don't know if that's showing up in the home lawn market where people aren't maybe seeding as much, but just as recently as last week, I had a seed producer tell me they're in a surplus situation. So I don't have any indication that seed is going to be short. But as you know, it's a complex answer. I mean, is bluegrass short? Fescue's not. I mean, those bent grass short, those kinds of things. I don't really have, any light to shed on that.
Yeah, I know. There's the interest kind of is always steady. I mean, Becky, I'm sure you've fielded plenty of calls and starting at Tennessee about tall fescue cultivars and what's the best fit for the state. And sometimes it's kind of hard to find. You can get a cultivar information, but it's hard to find that specific cultivar itself, right? Because things are often in blends or mixtures.
Yeah, that can be challenging. And sometimes, it's not the easiest, even on some of the packaging that we see, to discern what varieties are in a particular blend. And, but, certainly there's some wonderful improved varieties out there that give us really good options. And, so.
Yeah, I'm doing my best.
We have a magazine. We produce this issue every July, Seed and Vegetative Stock. And I mean, I've just grabbed it off my desk. Here's one producer saying perennial ryegrass and tall fescue, there's good supply because we've had good yields. Fine fescue demand has been really high, so that may be harder to get. Kentucky bluegrass, good yield, more seed on the market. So, I mean, yeah, just anecdotally picking out one seed producer in this magazine, that's the vibe I've been getting.
I'm doing my best.
Another one, inventories in Oregon are at record high for perennial ryegrass and tall fescue.
Well, that's good news for everybody.
Yeah.
That's good news for everybody. There's certainly been, I've fielded more calls from the golf course industry about overseeding with ryegrass in the past year than maybe the previous 14 years at Tennessee combined. And, certainly in the COVID era, there's been an uptick in golf, more interest in golf, more money in the game. That could certainly be part of why there's renewed interest in overseeding. I'm not really sure, but it's good to know that the stocks are there.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like it.
I'm doing my best Tom samples today, though. I'm getting us way off topic for what we're here to actually talk about. We're in this conversation about seed during a session about the Sod Checkoff, which Tom would be proud of me, but I'm going to bring it full circle back. So Casey, what is the Sod Checkoff? I've heard you talk about this in various settings, but my inclination is that most of the folks that are joining us today might not have ever heard about the Sod Checkoff and have an idea of what it is. So I guess, start at the beginning and I'm going to sit back and listen to you describe it for our group.
Okay. So, I'd say back as far as the 1960s, farmers have looked around and they said, wow, I'm selling cattle in Oregon or Texas or Florida or whatever, pick a state. And I can't necessarily pitch in enough money to promote beef nationally. But, if we all pitched in, we could. So back in the 60s, I believe, beef, dairy, soybeans, maybe a little bit later than that, they went to the Department of Agriculture, excuse me, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and essentially said, hey, we need to raise money to promote our agricultural products. And one farmer can't do it. And even if they could, is it fair if one farmer was promoting beef and another farmer was getting sales off of that beef? So that kind of born this idea about checkoffs. And one of the first ones to start back in the day, you know, when it went up for a vote among the industry, you had to check a little box that says, you know, do you support this initiative? And you checked it. And just, you know, by happenstance, people started calling them checkoffs. But what they're really called are USDA research and promotion programs. And they've been around for whatever, 80 years now, maybe since the 60s. And essentially what it is it's the United States Department of Agriculture worked through Congress to pass a law that lays out the legal framework for farmers to pool their resources and to promote their agricultural commodities. And since they've started, we're up to 22 checkoffs now at the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And I'll just read through a few of them randomly. Beef, soybeans, milk, you know, cotton. These are the ones that people think about, like when you're watching TV and you see the cotton ink commercials. When you see eat beef, it's what's for dinner or got milk. Like those are all things that got formed through checkoffs. And those are national, very impactful marketing campaigns that no single farmer could ever take on by themselves. But for beef, for instance, when every farmer in the country pitches in $1 for every head of cattle they sell, I mean, you end up raising $100 million, you know, or $80 million, an amount of money that you can actually do something with. And those early checkoffs, you had to go through Congress to get a law passed. I mean, an industry like us as sod, you literally had to go to Congress. You had to lobby your lawmakers to get a bill on the floor of the House, get it passed, send it over to the Senate, get it passed, send it to the president's desk to get it passed. And it took years and years to do that. So back in 1996, Congress essentially said, you know what? We've got a U.S. Department of Agriculture for a reason. Let's let them handle checkoffs. So when the Farm Bill that year was passed, it contained legislation in it called the Agricultural Improvement and Reform Act of 1996, better known as the Freedom to Farm Act. And it contained legislation called the Commodity Promotion, Research, and Information Act. So when the Farm Bill passed in 1996, it delegated authority to the U.S. Department of Agriculture to conduct checkoffs. And since 1996, if an industry wants to contribute or create a checkoff, you no longer have to go through Congress. You go straight to the USDA. Blueberries have done it, Christmas trees, honey, mangoes, peanuts, softwood lumber. You know, there's probably a dozen different industries that have gone to the USDA to create a checkoff. And that's what we're doing right now. So essentially, we've proposed a U.S. sod checkoff to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. It's under review. Once it is posted for public comment, it'll be free for everyone to see, to go in to provide comment on. But the general idea is the same idea that dairy and beef had 50 years ago, which is if we all contribute a little bit of money, we can protect and promote our industry. And, you know, you mentioned earlier, there's probably a lot of landscapers on this call. I mean, if you just Google the term, well, let's do it right now. I'm going to Google the term lawns are. So if we go to Google and we type in lawns are, the top hits are stupid, colonialism, bad, waste, bad for the environment, disaster, stupid, ugly. You know, this is what people think of our industry. They think we waste a lot of pesticides. We waste a lot of water. They think we really should just absolutely get rid of lawns and sports fields and golf courses altogether. And we know that not to be the case. We know that there are benefits to having lawns and urban spaces like parks and golf courses and cemeteries, you know, that contribute positively to our urban and suburban environments. But there's just no money to tell that story. So if the sod checkoff were to pass, it would essentially raise, we think, 14 or more $million a year to go out and to fund research so that universities can have monies to do local research projects to promote and protect their industry. It would also provide local and national marketing dollars that our industry could go out and talk about the good side of our industry. And the overarching objective of both of those would be to promote and to protect our industry. And right now, frankly, there's just no way to do that because no association or no individual state has the money or the will to go out and do that nationally. And our industry firmly believes that a checkoff is the only way to fill that need. A nationwide strategy for raising funds to promote research, to raise research and promotion dollars at a meaningful level.
So
and that's kind of what got us to where we are today in a nutshell.
So I have a question. When you commented early, these things would go through the House and then go through the Senate and then through the president's office to pass. And I kind of understand the workflow there. And that would be really hard, I think, to do in the modern world if that was the workflow today. How, you said it's currently with USDA. It's going to open for public comment. Becky and I in particular are pretty familiar with the public comment period as it pertains to like herbicide re-registration and relabeling and what goes on in that world. So once the public comment period closes, like how does it pass? Like, is there a vote at USDA and they need like a majority of USDA people to say like, all right, this is a go, or like, how does it work from there?
Okay, so it's not a vote at USDA. The USDA tries to drill home with us and other checkoffs repeatedly that this is your industry's checkoff. Congress gave us authority to administer it, but it's your industry. Like, you decide everything. You decide what's in it. You decide how the vote works. You decide what the rate is. You run it. There'll be a board of sod producers ultimately that run the checkoff if it were to pass. So it's not a USDA-led initiative. I mean, we actually go to USDA, and there is a rule at USDA that no taxpayer dollars can be used to fund checkoffs. Like, the industry has to pay for it themselves. So I only say that to share that it really drives home the point that these are not USDA-led programs. These are industry-led programs. Now, to your question about the flow, essentially an industry has to go to USDA and say, you know what, we've got this need for a checkoff. We want to talk to y'all about proposing one. And in that 1996 Research Promotion and Commodity Act, there's rules. There's a 50, 75-page handbook for what you got to do to pass a checkoff. The first thing you have to do is propose an industry analysis and justification. So this is, what's the size of our industry? What are the threats to it? What's the value of it? How much market share could we lose if we don't promote our industry? How much market share could we gain if we do promote our industry? You go through all of that, and then you write with an attorney what potentially the checkoff language would be. And then you submit that to USDA. And that's where we stand right now, Jim, is USDA has got that proposal in hand. They could approve it any day. And when they do, the very first step will be they'll open up something called the public comment period. That public comment period will be open for 60 days. And it's every person's right in the country to log on and provide public comment. So you as a professor could log on and say, I support this. Becky as a professor could log on and say, I hate this. Landscapers can log on. Golf course superintendents can log on. Sod producers are the ones that really need to log on and provide comment because they are the ones that vote on it. So after that 60-day public comment period closes, the USDA will compile all those comments and they'll repost it with any edits that are made after that comment period. So if there is overwhelming support, for instance, that board have a guaranteed seat from Florida, well, the USDA can make that change if our industry overwhelmingly supports it. And that's just an example, not that that would necessarily happen, but that's an example. They will repost that, and then we all get to see it, and they'll say, this appears to have enough support to go forth to a vote. So here's the voter registration date. And then they'll tell us how to go vote. And then they'll give us a window for voting. And then every sod producer in the country gets to cast a vote. And if it passes by a vote of 50% plus one among sod producers, it'll go to the next step, which is, okay, it has passed. Now it's time to form the board. Once that board is formed, those 13 or 14, 15 sod producers on that board, they will be tasked with starting the program. And then once the program starts, then there's a whole list of things that they have to do annually at USDA so that USDA can make sure the program's running the way it should. So we're pretty early in the process. We anticipate the public comment period opening pretty soon. And once it does, you'll see an announcement from us. We'll give everybody instruction on how to go on and do that. And then again, if there's support for it, the USDA will take it to the next step, and sometime in the near future, we'll vote on it. And if it were to pass by 50% plus one vote, one day in the next few years, we might wake up and our industry might have a checkoff.
And as the public comment period, I think, Becky, with EPA, those are 60, 90 days, right?
Typically 60.
Yeah, they can be like, you can have some guidance, but the benchmark is 60.
Okay.
And that's what we're anticipating, but you know, it may very well be 90. We'll find out when it opens, but the benchmark, you're right, Jim, is 60.
Yeah. So that, I mean, that'll be an important time, I think, to have people speak up in either direction to, you know, steer the future of this forward.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things when you were sharing kind of how you got here, you said the first step was to do an analysis of kind of the size and scope of the industry. And, you know, without getting too deep down the rabbit hole, I'm sure there had to be some things to you in doing that were surprising, and like numbers that were maybe bigger than you expected. Was there any kind of broad brushstroke takeaways from when you did that really kind of blew you away about the sod industry as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you there weren't any real surprises from a sod perspective. You know, USDA, they have what's called an agricultural census, where they do a census every year, every 5 years, of farms all over the country. You know, no real surprises in the number of farms and acres that were reported. But really the surprising part, and I'd say that's relevant to today's call, is there is no data on landscapes and golf courses and cemeteries and roadsides and parks. We potentially are, if you count lawns, sports fields, you know, every grass place that our, you know, landscapers and golf course communities manage, we're potentially the third or fourth largest agricultural commodity in the country. And we have no data on it. And you ask yourself, well, why is there no data on how big the economic impact of the lawn care market is? And the answer is, well, there's no money to do the research. You know, like, those studies are expensive. I mean, to go out and to do a research study to figure out that the landscape industry in the US is a $40 billion industry, I mean, that's going to cost $500,000 or more to do that work. And right now, as it stands today, there's just no pool of money to do that work. So if you're trying to work locally and you're trying to get people to understand how big of a footprint our industry has, we have no way to do that right now. So it's a great example of why we want a checkoff, is we could fund that type of work. And then every lawn care operator in the country could go to their city council men and women and say, hey, lay off of me. You know, we contribute X amount of jobs and Y amount of value to this community and Z amount of environmental benefits. You know, we could fund research to show the benefits of lawns and golf courses and landscapes. Whereas right now, there's just no money to do that. So I think, to answer your question, the surprising thing we came across was just the absolute lack of data in this topic that we really need to address as an industry if we want to move forward.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that. You know, I'm taken back I mean, I want to say we recently did this, but I'm getting old. This was like 10 years ago now. We did one of these surveys at the state level, and we were lucky enough, to your point about expense, it was way more costly than I think John and myself and Brandon and Tom, when he was here, ever thought it would be to do it. And we generated some great data about the economic impact of turfgrass as an industry in Tennessee. And to your point about the number of jobs that were created. But when you read through the report, like one of the number one takeaways from the people who participated in that and working with our agricultural economics department was they were unaware that they were part of the turfgrass industry, right? We were sending this to people that had a lawn, were landscapers, just kind of in an industry where in the industry in whatever pocket or corner you might be, and they were totally unaware that the turfgrass industry was something that they were a part of. It's interesting to hear that the lack of data to speak to size and scope is true at the national level as well. And I think, you're in the DC circles more than any of the three of us here. I've heard chatter that there's an effort, I think, with the U.S. Agricultural Statistics Service, maybe, to try to have a kind of turfgrass survey as part of the Farm Bill. Is that right?
Yeah. So we are promoting that in this year's Farm Bill cycle. The USDA's, they have a group called NASS, which is National Agricultural Statistics Survey. And we've approached them about doing this study, and they've said, sure, we're happy to do it. We've got the manpower and the skill set to do it. But again, it's not free. Like, you can't just go to USDA and burden the taxpayer with conducting your industry study. You have to fund it. And there's just no money, so we're trying to get it into the Farm Bill to get the Farm Bill to fund it. But, who knows whether or not that'll happen. The general vibe, depending on who you talk to in which chamber and which side of the aisle, is no more appropriations, no more spending money, no more anything, which is certainly a political discussion more than a industry discussion. And we're at the mercy of that. So until we go to USDA and say, hey, here's a check for $500,000 to do this work, it's just not going to get done.
So, is that, let's say, we fast forward and it's 2026. Not that that's a firm timeline, but just some point in the future, and this sod checkoff, it becomes a thing. It passes the vote. You said 50% plus one, and the board that's administrating it, it's all in place. Is that kind of the lowest hanging fruit item number one?
No, that's a pretty big priority.
Go to?
That's a pretty big priority. Yeah.
Are there other priorities you can speak to of, like, if this was to be generated, the types of things that could be done, dream scenario, this all passes, what could be done? Yeah.
Well, so certainly the economic impact, the footprint is certainly a big piece of it. They're called research and promotion programs for a reason, because essentially the law only allows you to do research and promotion. So you can't do lobbying. You can't contribute to political campaigns. You can't, sell things. Like you're really, they're designed to do research and promotion. So under those two umbrellas, the sky is the limit. Off the top of my head, a few top priorities would be: 1, economic impact. 2, ecosystem services. People don't think about the benefit you freely gain from all this national capital sitting out there. When you drive through a subdivision, you might see somebody's water running and you say, man, look at the waste of that water. And there's just no thought given to, but yeah, what do I get for that water? What are the benefits that are produced by that being a lawn instead of concrete? And there's some data out there to show that, which we could do a whole nother podcast on environmental benefits of landscapes and lawns. But that's a target area that needs to be worked on. Marketing, when Aaron Rodgers went down with his knee injury a few weeks ago, there's an opportunity for sod farmers all over the country and for athletic field managers all over the country to show, hey, natural grass is a safer choice. There are benefits. Let's get our school systems going back to natural grass. You know, that you could do a nationwide marketing campaign on the benefits of natural grass from an athletic fields perspective. You know, but we don't have the money to do that right now. You know, marketing, research, understanding consumers. You know, I've got a little bit of data on this, but when you look at what causes consumers to make purchasing decisions, it's pretty intriguing. And in our industry, in agriculture in general, sustainability is increasingly becoming a major contributor to people's purchasing decisions. So if we're sitting on an industry that people don't think are sustainable, the consumer research shows that they will stop purchasing our product. But if we do research on environmental benefits and sustainability and best management practices to show them that our product is sustainable, then we could actually protect and perhaps even grow our industry. Plastics, there's consumer research to show that people are now considering the impacts of plastics on the environment. So if you give that consumer a choice, I can purchase natural grass with no plastic, or I can put a synthetic turf front lawn in that's nothing but plastic. You know, we could shift consumers' perceptions to making sure they understand that we have, you know, a more sustainable product that has no plastic in it. So, you know, Jim, I could talk for an hour about that, but I mean, high level, anything to do marketing, lawns and sports fields and golf courses, any type of ecosystem services research, any type of consumer research that lets landscapers and sod producers understand the consumer better, what they're willing to pay for, you know, with relative to lawns and landscapes. I mean, you could the the limit. I mean, really.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and you know, it's just interesting. Listening to you talk about this. Becky and I tomorrow we're going to go participate in Knox County Parks Department meeting, and the topic of the discussion is going to be about irrigation improvements in one of our county park properties. And one of the things that we need to speak to is, you know, the county that we live in, Knox County, is becoming more urbanized, right? You have 100-acre property and grassland, and there's a lot of benefits that come to that for every citizen in the county. From an environmental standpoint, everybody's affected by that. Whether they use the park or not, they're all going to be affected by having a 100-acre footprint of turf grass in the middle of an urban county. And, you know, it's challenging to have these discussions about, you know, an infrastructure improvement or a capital improvement that confer those benefits without, you know, a ton of real work to show really how A connects to B, right? We know that it does, but I don't know that we've really delved out exactly how that connection is made and why a investment in infrastructure there would be helpful. But we know that it would. We just need the resources to do the work to show it really clearly to an end user group.
Yeah, and that's where checkoffs come into play. Like when you start to partner research and promotion, that's when you really start to have an impact. So if we had $15 million a year to spend on research and promotion, you go out, you fund universities to do the research on the benefits of natural grass in urban settings, you get that data, then you package it nicely into brochures and social media posts, magazine ads, radio ads, you know, Google ads, whatever. You take that research, you package it, and then you go out and you market it. That's how you have an impact. So you do the work, then you tell the story. And right now there's just not really money to do either. But if you had money to do both, you could change the perception that people have of the green industry.
And what's cool about it, I think, is, you know, we have a lot of lawn care folks that listen and landscapers that listen to this. And, you know, you might hear sod checkoff and just think, oh, well, that's not applicable to me. I'm not a sod farmer. But, you know, I look at that, Casey, and think, well, okay, if these sort of things can be demonstrated through research that would be supported by a sod checkoff, well, you know, what if you're a lawn care operator and, you know, maybe you've lost some accounts during COVID, right? And business is a little slow. Well, if you have the ability to communicate to a homeowner, like an investment in your lawn, being a healthy growing lawn, confers X, Y, and Z benefits, there's a world out there where that sort of research endeavor helps a lawn care company maybe pick up more accounts and justify why the investment that a homeowner is making in a fertilizer program for their yard or a weed control program for the yard or whatever, is a net positive, right? I think we could get to there if we had the research support to do that.
Yeah, and what I like to say is what's good for people that grow grass is good for people whose industry depend on grass. A research program and a promotion program that's good for our farmers that helps them sell more sod is good for people who manage that sod and install that sod. And inversely, if consumer perceptions are shifting away from lawns, well, what's bad for people who produce grass like our members is also bad for people that manage those lawns. Like you said, you're going to lose accounts. So, it's all about, this mentality that a rising tide raises all ships. If we can get consumers to better understand the value of their managed lawn and landscape and the value of their natural grass parks and sports fields, then it's a win-win. The community wins, the people who manage and whose jobs depend on that win, we win because we sell more product into that space. And it's just it's what we need to do to protect and to promote our industry.
Yeah, and on the consumer perception front, I know Becky, before you came to Tennessee this May, you were at Texas A&M, and I think you shared with me, and I'm sure this group might be interested in learning about it, a case study, and it was, I think, in San Antonio, maybe in Texas, about water use. I might have the town wrong, so
yeah.
but water use with lawns versus taking the lawn out and putting it in xeriscaping or whatever, and how the water use did or didn't change from that.
Yeah, sure. So I think, and I think, several of us have seen examples of this, particularly out west, where there's growing concerns around water use and water conservation. There's been a lot of very, I would describe it as well-meaning but reactive policy, right? That seeks to remove or replace turf, and this has prompted a lot of questions around is this appropriate, and do we understand the implications of changing this out, what the ecosystem service trade-offs are of introducing other things. And the San Antonio water system a few years ago, they had a campaign where they incentivized people replacing turf grass with xeriscape plants or native and adapted plants, and they evaluated water use over the course of about a year. And it was a lesson learned for them, and I actually heard the story from them directly that over the course of that year, lawns that had converted away from turf had a zero water savings. There was no difference in the amount of water that was used, because a lot of it comes back to just education, right? And it comes back to understanding what these plants need and talking to people about the value of the different plant materials that they're introducing and what's needed to maintain them and to optimize the benefits that those plant materials offer. So, I mean, for me, I think it just kind of points to the fact that there's a lot we still don't understand. And I think, increasingly we're seeing that in some cases, the policy or cultural interests are kind of getting ahead of the science. And to Casey's point, there's a lot that we don't have data for, and we need to develop that data so that we can, one, protect our industry, and two, ensure that the decisions that are being made at scale reflect science and are science-based and are not necessarily just emotional or in response to what's interesting or trending in the moment, right? So Casey, I had a question, I guess, as we've been sitting here talking. I feel like we've been discussing something that's very kind of conceptual. I think several of us as researchers are really comfortable in that space. We're going to do research and we're going to find some things and there's benefits. But if I'm a landscaper, what do the tangible deliverables of this look like, and how do I interact with them? Are we talking about publications? Are we talking about what am I going to be able to get my hands on as a result of this work that I can then use in my day-to-day job?
I'd say marketing content is one of the objectives of this program. So if you could go to a website, we have a website called thelawninstitute.org, but if you woke up one day and thelawninstitute.org was, where there was another version of that related to the checkoff, you could download social media tweets that says, hey, did you know that a 5,000 square foot lawn produced enough oxygen for 34 people? And then you put that on your social media page and you tweet that out or share that with your customers. Maybe it's video content that we talk about. We get a researcher in front of a urban suburban city and we say, hey, did you know that 81% of the water that is captured in this city is captured by lawns? Hey, let's expand lawns. Let's not decrease lawns. Marketing content is something that we need. We need research to figure out what the story is to tell. And then you need marketing content to tell the story. And I'll give you a good, for instance, there's a paper published a few years ago, and I'm looking at it right now. And they essentially looked at all the different ecosystem services of a city. They segmented it into forest, urban forests, grasslands like parks and cemeteries, golf courses, and then residential lots, which is what the bulk of us think about with cities is, picture any subdivision with 300 homes in it. And what they found was 89% of the carbon that was captured in that city was captured by grasses, and 88% of the water that was regulated by lawn grasses, and 81% of runoff that was regulated by lawn grasses. So it's a good example. We've got good data that we're sitting on right now, but there's no way a landscaper is going to take this research paper and give it to a customer, expect them to read it. But if we had the money to work with a national marketing firm or public relations group to capitalize on this data, package it, and now instead of just me going out there as one person, telling the story, we've got hundreds of thousands of landscapers all over the country resharing social media posts with the same story, which is, here's the benefits that research is showing. This is why you should consider resodding your lawn with Bermuda grass if it's fescue. If that's an objective of a landscaper in Middle Tennessee to say, man, if I could get every customer in my neighborhood to switch from fescue to Bermuda, here's the type of water we could save, or here's the benefits of that. Like, you might end up with some marketing content to do that. Or inversely, if everybody that was growing tall fescue said, well, hey, I want some marketing content to show that fescue is the better choice, create it, and then go out and sod lawns and tall fescue. So tangible marketing content that's easily accessed and distributable by landscapers nationwide and golf courses nationwide, based on research that is up to date and funded and done correctly. I mean, it really could be it could be a difference maker for the industry.
Oh, sorry, Jim. I was just curious. So we've talked a lot today about like how to convey some of this to customers, but I think, Jim, maybe you made one point earlier, and I think it's worth reiterating that like there are other audiences that we have to kind of communicate about our industry with, right? Particularly if I'm managing school grounds or if I'm managing public park spaces, right? I have certain policymakers, or I have certain other public figures that I may really need to be able to share this information with. And right now it's hard for us to do that. And like, Casey, would you say that the absence of some of this data or the lack of organization around it has potentially kind of undermined other opportunities for our industry as it relates to being involved in policy discussions and other things at the bigger picture?
Yeah, I mean, a common call I get, and I actually got it last week for a meeting today. A common call I get is from a parent who says, hey, my school district is getting ready to vote on a $60 million bond package to make all of our schools plastic turf. Do you have any information you can share with me about grass ball fields that I can take to this city council meeting tonight and try to change their mind? And the answer is no, we don't. We've got the story, but I don't have countless brochures and fact sheets and things that someone can easily print and take into their community and help impact those decisions. We need that as an industry. Like, we need you as a parent going to your local school board and saying, before you get rid of these grass ball fields, or before you approve this new subdivision and make it illegal for them to have lawns, which does happen, or have lawns that are bigger than, X amount of square feet, before you implement this policy that impacts my community, you need to understand the benefits of this product. And if you remember earlier, I said that checkoffs can't lobby. That is true. That's something the checkoff could not do. I could not myself, as an employee of the checkoff, if I were, go to that community and do that. But we can produce the research and the content, make it publicly available, and then you can go do that. And that's what really needs to have happen, is before people make these decisions on how to impact their communities with building codes or public school funds, they need that information in a way that is easily digestible. And right now, there's just no money to do that.
And I think anybody who works in extension would welcome the opportunity to have easily digestible, research-based information to help have those conversations. Because like you said, there's bits and pieces out there that are well done, but they're scarce and scattered. Like, they're not really organized and put together in a way where everything is kind of centrally linked, on message, if you will.
Correct. Yeah. And, you guys in Tennessee, let's say y'all do the research, but I would venture to guess that the University of Tennessee is not going to spend $50,000 in Facebook and Google and radio ads to tell the story, but if the Tennessee sod producers decided, you know what, we're going to take some of these checkoff dollars and we're going to spend $50,000 spreading this message, they can do that, because that's what they do with checkoff dollars, is promote it. So, the checkoff would be burdened with creating the content. Y'all might do the research, but the checkoff creates the content. The checkoff promotes the content, and then y'all piggyback right on that. So if Jim or if one of y'all gets called to a meeting, well, then you go to that website now and download this content and present it. And there's no law that prevents you from doing that. It's just the checkoff can't do that, but the checkoff can produce the content that allows you to go do that.
Are we ever going to get to the point, Casey, where I turn on my TV at 1:05 Eastern on a Sunday, there's an opening kickoff, they cut the commercial, and I see a sod ad? Because that'd be pretty cool.
That would be pretty cool. And hypothetically, yes, you could do that. I don't know that you would do that, but yes, you could do that.
I mean, I got to think, I joke about that, but that comes from seeing the beef it's what for dinner ads and the incredible egg and got milk and all that. I mean, everybody remembers the milk ads when we were kids.
Yeah.
I got to think, for size of industry and size of checkoff, like, at least at the outset, it probably won't be as big as beef or dairy or whatnot, but who knows, maybe it could eventually grow into that one day. Yeah,
you never know. Beef, dairy, I mean, the beef program, $280 million. No, that's dairy. I mean, the dairy checkoff is, $200-300 million a year. I'm looking at the numbers here of the fluid milk, millions of, I don't know, but sod checkoff, we're guessing is probably going to be more along the lines of, we've estimated in that industry analysis about $14 million a year. Could they afford national ad space? Perhaps. But, the other thing you can do with these dollars is you leverage it with other industries. So the checkoff might say, well, hey, I don't have $10 million to go run this ad, but if I take $1 million and I ask a mowing company for $2 million and, the NFL Players Association for $3 million, and you go there and you leverage those dollars and you say, hey, well, I'm going to pitch in this, y'all pitch in that because we all benefit, then yeah, you could potentially raise that kind of money through, some type of matching system.
We had one of our extension agents comment that they should have Aaron Rodgers be the spokesperson when the ad comes out.
Yeah, well, and we certainly, like, Aaron Rodgers has been pretty vocal about grass fields, as many of y'all know. But I mean, God, if I were to email Aaron Rodgers today and say, hey, what would it cost for you to do that? I mean, I can't afford that at TPI. I doubt, a landscape professional association could afford it, but
I don't think UT Extension could afford it either, so you're not alone.
Hey, Casey, if cotton is the fabric of our lives, what is turf?
So that's their tagline. I mean, the tagline that we've got right now with the checkoff is bring grass to life. It works on several levels. Obviously, sod producers, seed producers, we physically bring grass to life when we plant it. Landscapers, golf course superintendents, athletic field managers, when y'all buy the product and you bring it to your community, you are bringing that grass to your life. Like you're transporting it from the farm to your community, you're bringing it to your life. And then, we also think the checkoff could bring the industry to life, so it works on a few levels. That doesn't mean that somebody down the road might not have a better tagline they come up with, but that's what we have right now, bring grass to life, because we do think a checkoff could quite literally bring our industry to life with some of this positive research and messaging that we know we need.
I like it. Bring grass to life. I'll remember that one. Before I forget, because I've forgotten before and then gotten 100 emails about this afterwards. On the screen is this is for golf course superintendents only. This has nothing to do with pesticide credits, but if you are a golf course superintendent and you are listening to this or watching this, this is your approval code right here for continuing education CEUs to maintain your certified golf course superintendent status. We were awarded 0.1 CEUs for today's session. If you are watching this as an archived view on YouTube or listening to this on our Apple Podcasts, you want to make sure that when you log this into the Golf Course Superintendents Association of America website, you put today's event date of October 3rd. Again, that's for golf course superintendents only, and it has nothing to do with pesticide credits of any kind. So Casey, we're coming to the end of our hour here, and I know many folks want to hop off and get to lunch. I guess, before we go, any kind of, when I was a kid, I used to watch a show on Sunday mornings on ESPN called The Sports Reporters, and they'd have all these different kind of beat writers that follow different teams nationally, like Mike Lupica was on it forever, and Mitch Albom was on it forever. And at the end of the show, the host, Dick Schaap, would ask each guest if they had any parting shots. So do you have any parting shots? Anything you want to leave with the group before we sign off for the rest of the afternoon?
I would just say we're a long way from having a checkoff. So nobody go out and celebrate or panic. We got a ways to go. We are going to vote on it soon. And if you want to know more, reach out to us and we'll be happy to share more.
Awesome. And the website was thelawoninstitute.org. Is that right?
No, that's sodcheckoff.org.
Sodcheckoff.org. I'm going to put this in our chat right now. So every attendee who is with us today will have it. Sodcheckoff.org. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the time, Casey. Thanks again for joining us on Turf Tuesdays. This is kind of the end of our Turf Tuesdays year. It's been a pleasure to be part of these series in 2023, and we will be back in 2024 as a monthly offering to have pesticide credits available for those in Tennessee as well as surrounding states. So if you have any ideas for topics or speakers for 2024, please reach out to myself or any of my colleagues here at UT and bring those forward, because we're always looking for topics and guests to kind of keep these sessions fresh and interesting and make them be something that you want to tune back into each month. So with that, I wish you a good rest of your day, and we will see you all next year.